Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today I'm going to make a couple of gravity dyed shirts. I prepped both of the shirts the same way and I have them turned inside out. The first gravity dye I'm going to do with mainly gray, teal, and blue shades. The setup that I'm using is a couple of sawhorses and a piece of vinyl guttering in between the two sawhorses. Then I've placed a plastic container underneath the guttering to catch any of the runoff from the melting ice. I've drawn a diagonal line across the shirt from one shoulder of the shirt to the opposite hem of the shirt with a washable marker, and that's the area that I'm laying straight down the middle of the guttering. Then I'm going to try experimenting by just kind of twisting that line a little bit. Twisting it one direction, then the opposite direction all the way down the shirt. I want to see if that makes a difference in the flow of the dye or if it gives a little bit of a pattern to the shirt. Then to hold the ice on the shirt, I'm using a couple of small metal baskets which I purchased from the dollar store, I don't know, like a year or so ago. I'm trying something a little different with this shirt than I did with the previous shirt that I posted. I'm going to add a little bit of ice to my baskets and then I'm going to put the dye over the top. I posted another gravity dye not too long ago. And for that shirt, I placed the dye directly on top of the shirt, and it worked out really well. But I wanted to see whether or not if I went ahead and added a little bit of ice before I placed the dye on the shirt, if it would eliminate being able to see some of the darker areas where I actually added the dye. It's also a little windier today, so I thought maybe by adding the ice, that would help the dye to adhere a little bit better and not blow around quite as much. For this shirt, I'm using brushed steel from Dharma, silver lining from Dharma, gunmetal gray from Dharma, sea glass from Dharma, mermaid's dream from Dharma, aquamarine from Dharma, washed denim from Dye Spin, seashell blue from Grateful Dyes, and azure blue from Pro Chemical and Dye. I'm trying to randomly add them to the shirt, but as you can see, the wind is kind of blowing the dye around. I'm glad that I went ahead and added the ice to the top, but you can see where some of the blue dye has already gone over into the part of the ice where I haven't even applied dye. After I have all the dye on the shirt, I'm going to go ahead and add another layer of ice. That will hopefully stop some of that dye from blowing around. I didn't show it on camera, but I did go back in and add just a little bit of dry soda ash to the top. Then I just allowed the ice to melt, and I came back and added a couple more layers of ice to these containers. Once the dye had traveled all the way down to the bottom of the shirt, I didn't add any more ice, and I just allowed the shirt to process for, I don't know, about 12 to 13 hours. It was about 108 degrees that day, so 12 hours was plenty of time. Okay, so now I'm going to do another gravity dye, but this one is just going to be different shades of blue. I've drawn the line diagonally across the shirt again, and I'm going to twist it the same way that I did the other one. I'm doing both of these shirts at the same time, and the only difference is that I'm using a little bit different container to hold the ice. It's still a metal basket, but it's just a little bit longer. I'm going to add the ice down first on this one as well. Then for this shirt, I'm using turquoise from Dharma, royal blue from Dharma, lapis from Pro Chemical and Dye, and blue linen from Dye Spin. I'm going to add some soda ash over the top and another layer of ice. I processed this one the same way. I added a couple more layers of ice, and because it was so hot, I didn't have to wait very long for the ice to melt. Then I allowed the shirt to process for about 12 to 13 hours before I rinsed it. That's one advantage of the heat, is it allows the dye to bond to the fabric pretty fast, kind of like hot water irrigation. To rinse the shirts, I took them to my utility sink and I rinsed them in cold water to rinse out any of the soda ash. Then I warmed the water up to hot and continued rinsing in hot water to try to rinse out any of the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Instead of continuing to rinse for a long time, I rinsed both of them pretty well, and then I put them in a sink full of hot water along with a little bit of Blue Dawn dish detergent, and I just allowed them to soak. When the water cooled off, I changed it out and continued that soaking process until the water was almost clear. Then I put the shirts along with some Dharma's textile detergent into my washing machine, and I washed them using a hot water cycle. Then after the shirts were washed and dried, this is what they look like. Okay, so this is the first shirt that I did, the teal, blue, and gray shirt. And I think this one looks really cool. It kind of surprised me because I added the colors a little more randomly, that all the gray ended up on the top part of the shirt, the blue in the middle, and the teal toward the bottom. That was a little surprising. It may have been just because the wind was blowing as much as it was. I don't know. But I added the dye to the back side of both of these shirts. Generally, I've found that whenever I do like an ice dye with a tall, deep scrunch or something like that, when I add the dye to the back, there seems to be more dye movement on the front of the shirt. So when you look at these shirts, you'll notice that there's not a very definite dye line on the very back side of the shirt. I think that adding the ice before I added the dye helped with that, so that the dye kind of dissolved a little bit before it actually hit the shirt. And I like that. I like the fact that it's not so heavy in one area. When you see the front and the back right up next to each other, you can see a little bit more of the darkness of the dye on the back, but it's not severe. I also think twisting that line just a little bit helped add an interesting design in the shirt. I think some of the dye splits and stuff in this shirt look really cool too. There's quite a bit of variation in the different dyes. The fact that all the blue just ended up in the middle still kind of baffles me though. It's not that I mind it, it's just a little odd. I mean, I can see some of the gray down toward the bottom part of the shirt, but that was very unexpected for me. Okay, so now on to the blue shirt. I really like this one too. I think this one turned out looking really cool. And I did the same thing on this shirt where I added the dye to the back. You can see the design where I twisted this one. But this shirt is a little smaller shirt, so there's not quite as much of a design in it just because of the size. This shirt is a size medium, the other shirt is a size extra large. So I had a little bit more fabric to play with the other shirt. When you look at the back of the shirt, there are a few darker areas on the back compared to the front, but the two really dark areas down toward the bottom of the shirt actually came through to the front of the shirt too. So there's not a huge difference between the front and the back. I also like the way the colors blend into each other and some of the color variation in this blue shirt. I thought I would put the shirts up next to each other so you could see the difference between the two. When I look at them side by side, the size medium doesn't necessarily have less of a difference with the twisting. The pattern just seems to be wider instead of longer. You can see the pattern in both of the shirts, and I actually like that added effect. I think it gives a little bit of interest and a little bit of extra dye movement right through the middle of the shirt. Both of these shirts to me have very definite water vibes. The teal one for sure looks like, an ocean or a stream or something, and the one that's blue looks like either water or space to me. I think these gravity dyes give a really cool, unusual effect on the shirt, and they're a lot of fun to experiment with. And if you've enjoyed watching this video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.